and said right there, pretty much right there.
There's music here tonight.
Good evening and welcome to Cafe Lena. Thanks for watching this live stream production from Saratoga Springs, New York. These live streams are made possible by the generous support of the Sarah B. Folk Charitable Fund and by our community of subscribers. Special thanks to our Virtuoso level subscribers and lifetime Cafe Lena members. By buying a ticket for this performance, you're supporting independent music and the mission of our historic nonprofit venue. Enjoy your front row seats for this show, live from Cafe Lena.
Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Anna Maria Bellantoni, and I'm here as a representative of the Chamber of Commerce. Again, we're so happy that you're here today, and the Chamber is part of the convening of the impact sector to bring all of these organizations together to learn more about what you all do and how we can all get plugged into our wonderful community. And I think that's all I really have to say. Thanks for being here, and I'm going to pass the mic along.
Okay, great to see you here, and thanks to anybody who's tuned in online right now. So yeah, Art of Community. We have a fabulous community here in Saratoga Springs, and it's nonprofits and the amazing work that they do is part of what makes it a place where you can take hikes right near the downtown. It's part of what deals with social problems like homelessness or addiction. Is part of what brings such a rich culture of the arts to Saratoga and so much more. And so it is challenging, as you all know, because you all work in that field, to keep your inspiration going, to keep your energy going, to solve problems on a shoestring, to figure out new skills without maybe necessarily getting much formal training in them. So how do we do all of that? And what this series is about is sharing what we've figured out for ourselves and giving each other some little pearls of wisdom, some little inspiration that might help you in your work for the next few weeks. And some of you in the room have already taken a turn on this stage, and I am carrying the benefits of your wisdom in my work. And those of you who haven't been up here yet, you are qualified, because if you're doing the work that you're doing in the nonprofit sector, you've got something to share. So I'm here today with Nancy Dwyer, and she is the president of the board of Gateway House of Peace, which is an organization unlike any other that we've featured on this stage before. So Nancy and I are going to have a chat for about 20 or 30 minutes about some of those themes in her work. And then we'll get off the stage and we'll have coffee and cookies just like you. And if you haven't helped yourself to anything yet, there's a table right at the back, and you should just go ahead and help yourself. So you are the president of Gateway Peace's, House of Peace's board of directors. You've been involved with a number of nonprofits, more than just that one. So it sounds like, in general, Nancy Dwyer, you've kind of caught the community service bug.
I sometimes think I was born with it. I've always stepped up to help the underdog. I don't like injustice. And I've learned I'm not driven by monetary reward. So a lot of it comes from internal and working in not-for-profit and all volunteer groups. This one isn't all volunteer, the board is, really fills something in me personally.
Yeah, that's that really speaks to me, I have to say, and probably to everybody else in this room right now. So let's talk about what Gateway House of Peace is. Can you give me that sort of
60-second
elevator pitch?
speech. Gateway House of Peace is an end-of-life care home. So we're a home just like anybody else's. We are capped at 2 residents at any given time. Otherwise, we fall under a whole different set of rules and regulations, and we wanted it to be a comfort care home. So we take care of people 24/7 who really have the least amount of options in that last 3 months of their lives. So they're on hospice care to begin with through the hospice organization, but the end of life is really an interesting path that we as a society aren't really prepared for. We don't pay attention to that. We're kind of afraid of death and dying, and therefore we don't, and you don't experience it every day in your life, thank goodness for some of us, but then there are others of us who are drawn to it, or literally connect with that on an entirely different level. And fortunately for us, our caregivers are those types of people. So we are a comfort care home, and we provide 24-hour care at no cost to our residents or their families. And we do not receive any insurance benefits, nor are we government funded. So everything is fundraised, donations, grants. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, I can imagine. What's your story of how you came to walk through the doors there and get involved?
Leadership Saratoga, Chamber of Commerce. I'd been involved in not-for-profits, in other venues, environmental things, and I came through leadership of 2018, and Cindy Phillips was on the board of Gateway House, and they were looking for board members. So she went to the Chamber's list of leadership grads, and of course we all fill out a bio, and one of my things was end of life, and so she called me, and I was super busy at the time, but it was one of those, I was like, okay, the stars have aligned. I can't say no. So as busy as I am, and I'm sure all of you do the same thing, you can't fit one more thing on your plate, yet you want something done, ask a busy person, and it's gonna get done. So it just aligned, it fit, and I just graduated. So how do you say no when you just graduate Leadership Saratoga and a prior grad asks you to join the board? You're kind of like, yeah, okay. and I haven't regretted not a minute of it.
So I still have a question, though. Ticking the end of life box on your questionnaire must come from something yourself, and it could be maybe some training in the medical field. It could be spiritual. Could be having gone through something like that.
I have absolutely no training other than hands-on training. I guess I've always, it's one of those things, it's as you experience things in life, it gives you some clarity when you turn around and look at experiences you've had in the past or ways that you've been. It kind of clarifies and shines a light. And I think I've always had a different relationship than most people with death. And I was in the hospital with a friend of mine who was waiting for her husband to come out of surgery from a brain tumor surgery. And I looked up, and there was another friend of ours who I just kind of looked at, and I went, why are you here? You don't know him. And he said, I'm waiting for my wife to be released with hospice.
Oh, geez.
She had been suffering a brain tumor for the 2 years prior and was coming up on the end of her life. And he's one of those guys that does not ever ask for help. He's always the one who helps everyone else. And I said, do you need help? What can I do? And he just looked at me with that glazed look on his face and said, yeah, I need help. And he lives near me. So I ended up helping him, going to help him, but ended up staying to help his wife. She was the most graceful person. And so I was there when she passed. And there were 4 of us there by her bedside all night long. She passed in the morning. And it shifted my world. It was a life life-changing experience for me in the most amazing, positive way. And I'm confirmed in the Catholic religion, but I'm not really very religious. But there's some connection I have with death and dying and what happens after that. I am intrigued by it. I've experienced things that not everybody gets to experience. And so I understand the connection and what our caregivers, so we have sometimes people come to our home, and because of the care we give, they start to improve. And we have a 3-month limit because we're not designed to care for people forever. We don't have that kind of money, we don't have that kind of time, and we're only 2 beds. So our caregivers, sometimes we have to graduate people out to other living, and our caregivers, I look at it as like it's trauma for them. Oddly enough, because they're not designed to do that. Our mission is to help people pass with grace and in safety and peacefully. And when we have to we know they're going to pass, so it's really difficult for our caregivers to do that.
Yeah, it's a huge emotional shift.
So some people are just connected to that whole process, and we're very fortunate in our midst that we have some really great caregivers at Gateway.
So when you stepped in to help in a situation that you hadn't really been part of before, one of 4 people kind of helping somebody ease out of life, that took a lot of courage, I would say. It takes courage to go into those uncertain situations where you're not sure you have the skill set that you need. But when I read your resume, it was very clear to me that you're a person who enjoys a challenge in many different ways. I think
I thrive on it.
You thrive on challenge.
And I thrive on learning. I always say when my feet hit the ground, a good day is if I learn something and teach something. So I was also a teacher for 10 years in the high school, public high school. And I tutor and I sell real estate as a living, but that gives me the opportunity every single day to learn something and teach something. And it's always challenging.
I bet. So what are the, so you've been in a nonprofit as a volunteer and in a lot of different capacities. How's it different to lead the board of directors? What did you have to learn and teach to do that well?
The interesting thing, going from, well, I had been a vice president on a board prior to that. And the interesting thing about stepping into the president's position here was I had already been on the board for 3.5 years. And so long enough to see the challenges, the structure, the changes that we were going to need to be sustainable. And I was already going to step up to do those things anyways, regardless. I think I was the vice president at the time. But that was regardless, because I get people on my boards and committees, whatever, and they're going, well, if I have to do what you do, I don't want to do that job. And I'm always like, no. I do a lot of what I do because I see it needs to be done, and I know I can do it. It's not necessarily the position's responsibility all the time, so I was already moving to want to make some changes and get some things done, and then our president announced he was stepping down. And so I said, well, I guess here we go. It wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, but being in the lead allows you to make movement, you have a little bit more control over where the ship is going. At the same time, you have to be really, really careful and cautious that you don't become the dictator, that you stay open to the fact that it's not just about you. You're not the only one who gets to make decisions. So you kind of have to, often, people that step into those roles are those very independent, take charge. You have to be careful you don't bulldoze. And you have to keep that open conversation. You have to keep all the seats at the table, because the more people you have at the table, the more communication is happening, the more diversity you have with the experiences, that people bring, the better the outcomes you're going to get. So in that position, you do have a little bit more control over the direction of the ship, but you also sometimes have to hold yourself back that you don't disallow other people to step up and add. And you kind of have to be the facilitator a lot of times when often that may not be your strength. So it's an interesting juxtaposition of
I think
leadership.
that goes for a lot of people in nonprofit leadership roles because, like you said, a lot of people are inspired. Well, pretty much everybody is inspired to get into this line of work because there is some vision that they have for how the world could be a little bit better, some problem that they want to solve. And there's nobody really pushing you into one of these careers, is there? You know, it's something that we sort of discover and figure out for ourselves. And so already you've sort of like limited this pool to like a whole bunch of very independent people who who are very take charge. And then when you are in a leadership position, one thing that you need to be successful is the ability to cultivate talent and skill in other people and then get out of the way and let them shine.
And I've been very fortunate in my business world background to have worked with some really great owners and managers and some not so great owners and managers. And I tend to be a learner of and a watcher. I watch and really took in the attributes of those leaders and owners that allowed me to shine, allowed me to be more than I ever thought I could be. And one of the things that I noticed about them is they don't have an ego and they capitalize on your strengths and support your weaknesses. They don't try to make you be something that you're not meant to be. And they will, so when I say support your weaknesses, you know, I go back to a construction company I worked for, and we had superintendents, and I worked directly with the owner of the company, and it was a multi-million-dollar company. And our superintendents weren't getting in the timesheets that we needed to do payroll, and all of these union reports, everything came from that. And his response was, you know what? They're really good at running jobs. They're really good at working with our employees on those jobs. We're going to need to figure out a way to support that challenge of that particular paperwork.
Yeah.
And that was an aha moment for me. I was like, he's super supportive of, you know, these are your strengths. Let's put a platform here and allow you to shine. Because what I've carried forward with that in leadership positions and anywhere really is go to where people are, find out what their strengths are, what their passions are, and then align it. Know what it is you need, right? Have your list of tasks and needs. And then as you're meeting people and their passions and strengths align, you go, ooh, here's two puzzle pieces. Because what they're going to do is they're going to take it a lot further and higher than you could have ever imagined. And they're going to love it. It's not going to be work. They're going to love it because it comes naturally to them. You know, I watched that in my own children of, oh, well, you know, that's not worth anything. That's easy to do. And I'm like, for you? So it's you know, go to where they are, know what you need, know what the tasks are. As you come across people, be looking for that match.
Yeah.
Because it's magic when it happens.
And let your whole team know what those needs are. Make sure that everybody's carrying that because we all meet a lot of potential puzzle piece matches out there in the world. I had one person who sat in your chair who talked about they just have a whiteboard on the wall in the office and they just keep throwing the needs up on the whiteboard and everybody sees them and everybody can add to it. And they do get ticked off and matched a lot.
It's probably quite amazing once you've written it down.
Yeah.
They say write your goals down, they're more likely to happen.
So I'm hearing a lot of positivity and a lot of can do, but I also know that, you know, if you are sort of pushing yourself to the max and holding a really big vision of what's possible in life, there are times when you come up against obstacles that seem insurmountable, and it can be a little bit soul-crushing sometimes. Can you talk about a situation that you've been in where you really felt like you were up against challenges that you weren't sure how to deal with?
All the time.
Okay.
So right now, so we took a leap and hired an executive director part-time and a care manager, because the person that was doing that prior, this was a couple years ago, it was an impossible task and she burnt out. So we made the leap to commit to that, and then our executive director's life changed and she's moved away. So we are trying to find another executive director or development director. I mean, we're trying all these, right? How do you be creative? It's like, how do I redefine this? How do I regroup all of these tasks? So I said, you know what, we got to go backwards. Let's just list all the tasks, then pool the ones together that somebody can do, and then we'll put a title on that. So
Sounds familiar.
but trying to, right, so for Gateway House, trying to find an executive director to do a full-time job part-time for pay that is way below what they're worth. That's an impossible task.
Yeah.
Yet at the same time, I just have to believe that if you keep doing the best you can and you just keep on keeping on, things will work out. And often at Gateway, we're like, it's a wing and a prayer. Don't know how we got here. It's a wing and a prayer. And yes, it's a lot of hard work. And yes, everybody that works for us, everyone that gets paid, leaves something on the table. They're not getting paid what they're worth. It's a mission, calling. You're there for other reasons, in addition to, and I don't know about everyone else, but running a home, 24 care, somewhat skilled, doing it by volunteers is not sustainable for us. We tried. It is not a sustainable model. So we had to go to payroll.
So, do you have tools? Do you have practices? Do you have mentors? How do you keep that belief up that if you do your best work, it'll end up working out in the end? How do you hold on to that belief?
I guess just having experienced it over and over and over again. You know, I don't know. I don't know. I just
have a
have
stack
that
of
belief.
books in front
yes,
of you.
I'm that ridiculous, because you kindly sent me some really challenging questions. I was like, oh boy. And I literally was like, oh my gosh, I don't listen to podcasts. And what book have I read lately? And what ones? So really, a lot of these questions made me really think. And so, as you said, how do you do it? Well, one small step at a time can change your life. Excellent, simple, absolutely true. Who moved my cheese?
That sounds more like a Cafe Lena
Right?
book.
Yeah, who moved my cheese? It's all about, you can't stay stagnant. You've got to be watching what's going on. And then something I read when I was teaching, talent is never enough. John Maxwell, you have about 1,000 amazing books out. Talent is never enough. There's so much more to being successful, to being impactful than just talent. I saw it in students. You know, I saw students had amazing talent, but they had no work ethic. And you know what? At some point, your talent's going to hit the wall. And then what are you going to do? How are you going to? And then I saw other students who didn't really have a lot of natural talent, but they worked their tails off. And they would go light years beyond. I was like, I'm not worried about you. No matter what life throws you, you're going to be fine because you have that skill set to just make it happen. And, you know, yeah, I have my down days. I guess I've learned being down, just like crying, is all part of all of it. I can't be on up all the time. There are days where I don't want to do anything. So if I can possibly, I don't. I don't get out of my sweatpants, and I don't answer my phone, and I drink tea, and I sit on my porch and watch the birds. I don't even want to go for a walk. So I just lean into that and know that that's my body, my world telling me you need to stop and take stock. So I just kind of go with it.
Yeah, yep. And that's called work-life balance. And it is being preached to us all the time now that we're supposed to have something called work-life balance. And yet some of us take so much, I don't know, like our work is what feeds us. And then you start to feel guilty that you're spending too many hours on it. And like somehow you're not supposed to feel good about it that many hours of the week.
Or you go away and you're completely unplugged and your phone isn't ringing, and then you're like, wow, this is what I could really do. And then how do you shift back into that constant demand? Finding. So one of the questions or things that you were asking, what advice, and it's kind of like, look inside to what makes you tick, what gives you energy versus takes energy. That's where you want to align. What out there will give you energy, even though you're working your tail off morning, noon, and night? You still come away from it like, whoa, we rocked that. I want to do that again. Right? It was a ton of work. You're exhausted, but yet it just fed your soul. That's what you want to be looking for. So, and that comes from a lot of self-awareness. Really, really deep dive into what makes me tick. And then paying attention to, when are you pumped? When are you excited? And look around. You'll know when you meet people who are doing what they're meant to do, they exude an energy and a force field that you just want to be in. You want some of that. You want whatever they're selling. Give me some of that. And it's really fortunate when people can align that way. But look for it, because you'll see it. They'll be in a job that they're just like floating on a cloud. And then pay attention to yourself. What do you do that really just kind of motivates you and energizes you? Like, get more of that in your life.
That's fantastic. I would love to end right there, but I also want to give you a chance, if you would like to maybe share a story of something that's happened in the last year or two that kind of did that for you, that charged you up, that felt like a success, or that really shows the impact of the work that you put in.
Every family that comes through our home, there's a couple of threads that come out of that. And there was a woman who had just come with us. She was with us. And she's one of those that came to our home and got better and was in the process of potentially transferring out. And then her issues took a dive. Mm-hmm. She and her family both. So I read in the obituary, they did a big paragraph about Gateway House and what it meant to them and their mom. I was crying. I'm like, I live this house. I know what goes on here. This is the same impact we have with everyone who comes through here. It is so impactful for our residents and their families. I mean, the residents are passing. They're going to go. It's the families and the friends that Gateway really impacts. So while we're a 2-bed home, we're small, but our impact is profound. So it's every letter, every utterance from the families and friends and our residents when they're still with us, of their words were, "This home is heaven and my caregivers are angels." That's what keeps our board clawing and scratching and trying to figure out how to make this financially work, because every not-for-profit has really at least 2 pieces. You have your programming, your mission, your outreach, your impact, and then you have your business. So that whole not-for-profit volunteer, you're running a business. And whether you are serving 2 people or 200, there is a core piece of business that needs to exist for you to be successful. And I want the world to understand that not-for-profit is a business. And there is a side to it where you have to raise money. You have to do payroll. You have It's a full-time job of several people to do that. And you're delivering your mission, and you're trying to deliver your mission in a way that everyone that receives it doesn't know you're running a business. And it's like this, what? How? And that not-for-profit doesn't mean that, or shouldn't have to mean that you're giving and giving and giving and giving, and that you have to keep clawing and begging and groveling for funds and people. We provide an impactful service, right? This is the impact sector. We are impacting society. So one of the major differences between a for-profit business and a not-for-profit is the for-profit focuses inside. It's what's our goals, who are we, we're focused inside on what we're going to do as a business. The not-for-profit is really focused out there, trying to do everything here and not put that business piece out there, but our focus is really out there. What in society needs help? Where do our services need to be given because they're not being given anywhere else, and they shouldn't be given for profit? That's what I'm trying, that's my big struggle right now. How do you change that mindset, even on your own boards?
Well, that sounds like a great question to carry out into this group. We're going to turn off the mics. I want to thank you all for being here, and any follow-up questions you have for Nancy Dwyer, President, Gateway House of Peace, just walk up and ask them face to face. So thank you, Nancy. That was beautiful. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for... I want to thank Cafe Lena and Saratoga Chamber for all that you do to make it possible to have these discussions.
Cool. My pleasure.